The human soldiers stood in a long line, their eyes sharp, their weapons ready. They had never seen a Zyrene alien up close before, and none of them expected the creature walking out of the glowing shuttle. She was tall, smooth-skinned, and shining. Like silver under the twin suns, her steps were slow, graceful, and confident. Her eyes glowed a soft blue. But they burned with something stronger intention. Captain Jace didn't move. He had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but never had something made his heart pause like this. The woman didn't wear armor or carry weapons. She didn't need to. She walked straight toward Jace and stopped right in front of him. Her voice was soft, musical, and dangerous. "I am Zirala, chosen diplomat of the Zyrene Empire," she said. "We do not come for war." Jace didn't blink. He had heard about Hertha, most advanced and genetically perfected female the aliens ever created. Some said her body was designed for one purpose only: to charm and conquer without firing a single shot. Jace looked into her glowing eyes and replied, "We'll see about that." Behind them, the soldiers shifted uncomfortably. They weren't sure if they should salute or stare. Even the hardened Sergeant Miller whispered, "Is that really an alien? Or some kind of goddess?" Zirala smiled like she had heard him, but her eyes stayed locked on Jay's inside. She was already scanning his emotions, measuring fear, attraction, weakness, and more. But something strange happened. She couldn't read him clearly. Jace was calm. To calm, Zirala blinked and looked away for a second. That small action didn't go unnoticed by Jace. He leaned closer and said quietly, "If this is a game, Zirala, I'm not playing." She tilted her head. "I was told you would be more simple," she said, almost teasing. "And I was told your people don't lie." Jace replied. For a moment, the air between them felt heavy. It was like a war without bullets each word, like a quiet weapon. Later that day, Zirala was shown her guest quarters. They were clean, secure, and away from most of the base activity. She walked through the halls as curious eyes followed her. She smiled at some of them, but inside, she didn't care. Only one man mattered here: Captain Jace. She sat alone in her room and activated her hidden communicator. A green light blinked, and a voice spoke from her home planet. "Report, Zirala, is the human commander falling for you?" Zirala paused, then said, "Not yet." "He is different. Cautious, strong-minded," the voice replied. "Then push harder. Get close to him. Break his walls." She nodded and ended the call that night. She attended a welcome dinner in the command hall. Zirala wore a long, shining dress made from Zyrene energy fibers. It shimmered with her every movement. Everyone turned to look as she entered. Everyone. Except Jace. He stayed focused on his food until she sat beside him. "You don't seem impressed," she said, smiling sweetly. "I don't get impressed that easily," he answered, but his voice was calm, not cruel, and that bothered her more than insults would have. She tried to laugh, to tease, to flirt. But Jace didn't respond the way she expected. He didn't stare too long. He didn't try to touch her. He didn't offer drinks or compliments. He treated her like a soldier, not a tool, and that confused her. Later that evening, as the stars filled the sky, Zirala stood alone on the balcony. She looked down at her own hands. They were shaking slightly. She had trained her whole life for this: control, charm, calculation. So why was her heart beat faster than usual? Why was her face warm after one short conversation with a human? Captain Jace appeared beside her without a sound. "You don't have to play a role all the time," he said gently. Zirala looked at him, surprised. "You think this is a game to me? I think you don't know what to do when someone treats you like a person," he said, then walked away, leaving her stunned. She stood there, alone again, but this time feeling something unfamiliar: regret, shame, curiosity. She touched her lips softly and whispered, "What are you doing to me?" Human. And far above, hidden in space, a Zyrene warship waited silently, tracking her every move, prepared to strike if the mission failed, but they didn't know. Zirala was already losing control, and that was more dangerous than any weapon. Zirala had shared many rooms before, but never one that smelled like metal. Sweat and human coffee. The door clicked shut behind her, and she stood still, looking around the small space assigned to her. It wasn't royal, it wasn't elegant, and it wasn't meant for someone like her. But when she found one small item on the desk, a folded gray blanket, her fingers touched it gently. It was warm, not because of the fabric, because he left it there for her. She turned quickly and stared at the door. Why would Captain Jace bother with such a thing? He didn't flirt, didn't compliment, didn't even try to be close. And yet, he did this quietly. Without words, that night, the lights flickered as the base's power cycled. Outside, the desert winds howled softly. Zirala sat on the floor, her legs folded, her eyes half closed. She was supposed to be meditating, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning with images. His voice, his scent, the way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. This wasn't part of her mission. She was here to charm, to spy, to collect data and report. Not. Think about his smile and the silence of her room. The next morning, she met Jace in the briefing hall. He didn't greet her with formal words, just a small nod. That nod made something flutter in her chest. She ignored it. She had to. They were sent on a short inspection trip across the outer wall of the base. A desert storm had torn some of the supply cables. And Jace didn't trust the regular repair bots. He said, "If you want to understand humans, walk where we walk." Zirala said nothing, but followed. They walked together under the burning suns, across dry, cracked ground. She watched how he moved, careful, but not slow. He explained things she didn't ask, like how they managed their power grid, how they stored water, and each time he spoke, she listened, not because she had to, but because his voice made the wind seem less harsh. When the storm picked up suddenly, sand whipping through the air, Jace grabbed her arm. "Cover your face. Follow me," he shouted. She obeyed without question. They found shelter behind a metal structure. Crouching low, the wind screaming around them, Zirala felt the warmth of his body near hers. His arm was around her shoulder, steady and strong. She should have pushed him away. Instead, she leaned closer. He pulled his jacket halfway over her. And for a few seconds, there was nothing but silence between them. Their faces were only inches apart. Her voice trembled when she whispered, "You didn't have to protect me," Jace replied. "Maybe not. But I wanted to." That one sentence felt more dangerous than any gunshot, because it was honest, and Zirala wasn't trained for honesty. When the storm passed, they walked back to the base quietly. She avoided looking at him, and he didn't force conversation, but something had changed between them, something neither wanted to admit. Later that night, she sat again in her room, holding the gray blanket close. It still held his scent. Her heart beat faster as she turned on her communicator. A cold voice answered, "Zirala, report your findings." "Has the commander dropped his guard?" She hesitated, then said, "Not yet. He is still cautious." The voice replied, "Use more pressure. He is human. He will break." But Zirala didn't answer. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then tapped once. She deleted the recording of their desert moment. She sat in silence, eyes wide, realizing what she had just done. She lied to her people. She hid something. To protect him. Why? Outside her room, footsteps echoed. She opened the door slowly and found Jace standing there with 2 cups of something warm. "I heard you're not used to earth drinks," he said, "but try this. It's tea, calms the nerves." She took the cup, their fingers brushing for a second, and for the first time since arriving, she smiled without force. Not because it was part of her act, not because she had to impress him, but because she wanted. 2. Inside the room, she sipped the drink slowly. Then whispered into the quiet air, "Why does it feel like I'm the one being charmed now?" And far above, in the cold silence of space, a Zyrene intelligence drone caught only part of the day's footage. The rest had been wiped by her own hands. The mission was changing, but no one, not even Zirala, understood how far she was already falling. A loud explosion shook the walls of the human base. Screams echoed through the metal halls, lights flickered, and alarms wailed. Zirala was the first to rise from the meeting table, her eyes wide, her voice calm but sharp. "What was that?" she asked, but nobody had answers yet. Then someone ran in, face pale and shaking. "Commander Jace is down. He's hurt." It was a bomb. Zirala didn't think she ran. Her bare feet hit the cold floor with speed no one expected from her. Down the hall, past the smoke, through sparks and broken panels, she found him bloody, half-conscious, lying. Beneath twisted metal, his eyes were barely open. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Don't move," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't speak," but he did. "Zirala, you're safe." His hand lifted weakly toward her face and then dropped. His eyes closed. She screamed. Not a diplomat scream. Not a controlled cry of protocol, but a broken, raw, terrified scream, loud enough to silence even the soldiers. Around her, she pushed them away, her hands glowing with strange energy. They watched as she placed her palm over his wound. Light poured from her hand into his chest. She didn't know how she did it. It was old Zyrene instinct, something from long-forgotten bloodlines. But in that moment, she didn't care what it was. She only wanted to save him. Jace coughed suddenly, gasped, and opened his eyes. He looked at her, confused. "What did you just do?" She leaned close and whispered, "You saved me first, later." As the medics arrived and took him away, Zirala sat in silence, covered in his blood. She ignored the questions, the stares, the demands from command officers. All she could think about was how close she had come to losing him. That night, she sat beside his bed in the medbay. He was unconscious, but stable. His breathing was slow, his heartbeat steady. She reached out and held his hand gently. Her communicator buzzed. A private encrypted message from the Zyrene Empire. She opened it with shaking fingers. Her superior's voice was cold and direct. "You were nearly killed. Your target was almost eliminated. Return immediately. This mission is too unstable." Zirala stared at the screen. She didn't respond. Instead, she shut the communicator off and slid it under the bed. She didn't want to go back. Not yet, not ever. Maybe Jace woke just before dawn. His voice was weak, but clear. "You should have left me," he whispered. Zirala leaned forward and said softly, "But I didn't." He looked at her for a long time, then smiled a little. "So, we're both bad at following orders." She laughed quietly, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. War, politics, lies, missions, they were just two people, wounded in different ways. But now bound by something deeper than diplomacy. Over the next few days, Zirala never left his side. She fed him soup, helped him sit, listened to his dry jokes, and sometimes, in quiet moments, she just watched him breathe, watched the way his lips curved slightly when he slept, watched the way his hand sometimes reached toward hers, even in dreams. She stopped sending reports to the Zyrene altogether, deleted every recording device she'd planted, and when she was alone, she'd touch her chest where her heart beat too fast, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Or maybe so right. But one night, as she walked out of the medbay, something happened. She felt dizzy. Her skin shimmered oddly under the lights. She held the wall to steady herself, her breath shallow. In her room, she ran a scan on herself using stolen human medical tech. The results made her drop the device. She backed away in shock, her hands over her mouth. It wasn't possible. Her species was genetically blocked from crossbreeding. It had been tried and failed for centuries, but her body was changing, and deep inside her, something new had begun to grow. She was pregnant with his child, and now, everything she thought she knew about her mission, her people, her purpose was falling apart. As she sat in the darkness of her room, hands on her stomach, tears slowly rolled down her cheeks, not from fear, but from something even scarier. Love, and high above, in the orbiting Zyrene satellite station, an alert flashed red across a screen. Subject Zirala has gone dark. Biological anomaly detected. Immediate extraction ordered. Zirala stood in front of the mirror, her hands flat against her stomach. There was no visible change yet, no round shape, no movement, but she could feel it deep inside her. Something had begun, and it was growing every day, slowly and silently. Like a secret she couldn't control, she had run the tests 3 times. The result was always the same. She was carrying a child that should not exist, a child with both Zyrene and human blood. Her fingers trembled as she touched her own reflection. "I'm not ready for this," she whispered. But her body didn't care if she was ready or not. It had already chosen. She didn't tell Jace. Not yet. How could she? He had just recovered from nearly dying. How could she walk in and say, "By the way, I'm pregnant, and it's yours"? No. She needed time. Just a little more time. That day, she avoided him. She skipped breakfast, ignored the knocks on her door, and turned off her communicator when Jace came looking for her. She watched from a distance, hiding in the shadows, like a coward, and she hated herself for it that night. She sat alone on the cold floor of her room, knees pulled to her chest. Her stomach felt warm, almost alive. Her heartbeat wasn't just hers anymore. There was another rhythm now, faint and fragile. Then her door buzzed. She stayed quiet, hoping whoever it was would go away. But the voice that followed froze her in place. "Zirala, it's me. Please, just open the door." Jace, he sounded tired, unsure, not like the strong commander he used to be. Slowly, she stood up and opened the door. He looked at her with worried eyes. "I haven't seen you all day," he said. "Are you angry at me?" She shook her head quickly. "No, it's not you," she said. "It's me." He stepped closer, searching her face. "I don't know much about Zyrene emotions," he said softly, "but I do know fear when I see it." Zirala looked away, unable to speak. Jace gently touched her shoulder. "Whatever it is, a lie. You don't have to face it alone." For a second, she almost told him. The words were there, right on her tongue. But instead, she nodded once and said, "Tomorrow. I'll explain everything tomorrow." That night, her dreams were strange. She was running through a burning city, carrying something in her arms. Behind her, Zyrene soldiers chased her. They shouted, "It's forbidden. That child must not live." She turned a corner and found Jace waiting, arms wide. She gave him the child. And then everything went dark. She woke up with sweat on her forehead and pain in her chest. Something was wrong. Her skin was glowing softly, but not from peace. This glow was sharp and cold. She staggered to her feet and ran to the med bay. The human doctor scanned her without asking questions. After a long silence, he said, "You're not entirely Zyrene anymore. Something is rewriting your DNA." She looked at the screen. Her blood had changed color. Her cells had mixed, twisted, merged. The child inside her wasn't just alive, it was powerful. She backed away, heart racing. "I have to leave," she whispered. The doctor looked confused. "Why?" "You need rest care." But she was already gone, running through the dark halls. Her footsteps silent, her mind loud. In her room, she packed a small bag, nothing valuable. Just clothes, water, a stolen ID pass. She didn't want to leave. Jace, but staying could get him killed if her people found out. They wouldn't just take Herd to destroy the entire base. They'd call it a security leak, a biological failure. She had seen them do it before, as she reached the bases. Back exit, she stopped. One last look behind her, one last moment of pain. "I'm sorry, Jace," she whispered, then disappeared into the night. The next morning, Jace found her room empty, the bed untouched, the window half open. A small piece of paper lay on the desk. It said only one word: forgive. He stood there, staring at the paper. His fists clenched, his chest tight. He didn't understand why she left. But one thing was clear. She was scared. He turned around and walked straight to the command deck. "Get me her last tracking signal," he ordered. "She's not just a diplomat anymore," he whispered to himself. "She's everything high above." Far beyond human satellites, a Zyrene command ship began descending toward Earth. Inside it, cold voices spoke one command: locate the traitor, terminate the hybrid, erase all human contact. Zirla didn't know how far she had run. The sun was rising again, soft and red in the distance. Her boots were torn, her skin scratched, her body aching. But none of that mattered, not when her child was growing inside her, not when she knew. Her own people were hunting her now. She had reached the edge of the northern desert, a dead mining colony long abandoned by both humans and aliens. There were no cameras here, no patrols, no eyes, only silence. And she needed silence to think, to breathe, to protect what now mattered most. She sat inside a broken-down transport ship. Wrapping her arms around herself, her body was changing faster than it should. Her heart beat with two rhythms now, and she could feel them both. One was hers. The other was small, steady, and innocent. She had promised to charm a human. She had. Never imagined she would fall for one, and now, because of that, she was carrying a life that both her worlds would hate. Then she heard the sound, a soft, distant hum, smooth to be a storm. Her eyes narrowed. She stood quickly and looked through the cracked glass of the old ship. A transport pod was landing nearby, dust kicking up into the air. She backed away, hands shaking, but then a familiar voice shouted through the wind, "Zirala, it's me. Please don't run again." Her breath caught. She stepped outside slowly, and there he was, Captain Jace Dusty, out of breath. His face filled with something deeper than anger or worry. It was something close to pain. She stared at him in silence. "I found your signal," he said. Walking closer, I followed it. "You really thought I wouldn't come after you?" She looked away. "I had to protect you," she said softly. "You left me," he replied. His voice breaking. "You didn't even give me the chance to choose." Zirla dropped her bag to the ground and placed a hand on her stomach. "I'm pregnant, Jace," she said. And just like that, the wind seemed to stop. He didn't move for a long moment. His eyes slowly dropped to her hand, then rose back to her face. She waited for shock, anger, rejection. Instead, he walked forward and placed his hand gently over hers. "I already knew," he whispered. "I didn't want to believe it, but I felt something was different." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was afraid you'd hate me, or worse, feel trapped." Jace shook his head. "I don't hate you," he said. "I love you." Zirla's legs gave out, and she dropped to her knees, covering her mouth. No one had ever said those words to her before, not in her entire life. Not her creators, not her commanders, not even her own family. Only this human. This strange, stubborn, kind-hearted man. He knelt beside her and held her tightly. The wind returned, soft and warm. But the peace didn't last long. A shadow passed. Overhead, Zirala's eyes went wide. She pulled away and looked up. A Zyrene scout drone hovered in the sky. Blinking red, it had found them. They had only seconds. Jace grabbed her hand. "We run together now," he said. "No more hiding, no more leaving me behind." She nodded. Wiping her tears, they ran across the ruined colony. Deeper into the tunnels beneath the mining site, the ground shook as something larger landed. Above, the Zyrene weren't just sending drones this time. They were sending soldiers. Inside the dark tunnels, Jace lit a small flare. Zirala pressed against the wall. "Breathing hard, they'll kill us both," she said. "They'll take the child and erase any trace of what we created." Jace looked at her with fire in his eyes. "Then we fight." A loud echo came through the tunnel. Boots hitting metal. Zirala placed her hand on her stomach. Whispering something in her native language, Jace took position with his old rifle. He only had one clip, but that was enough to protect her. As the enemy moved closer, Zirala's body glowed again, brighter this time. The child inside her wasn't afraid. It pulsed with power. Zirala's eyes turned fully blue, her voice deeper. "They don't know what they've awakened," she said. Jace glanced at her, stunned. She wasn't just some beautiful diplomat anymore. She was something else now. A warrior, a mother, a threat to an empire above them. The Zyrene commander spoke into his mic. "Prepare for capture. Do not harm the hybrid." But even he sounded unsure. Something was changing, and Zirala was no longer part of their design. The fight was coming, and this time she wouldn't run. She would protect her child. She would protect Jace, even if it meant burning everything else behind her. Smoke filled the tunnels. Zirala stood in front of Jace with both hands raised, her body glowing brighter with every second. She wasn't breathing hard. She wasn't afraid. She was changing. The first Zyrene soldier entered the chamber with a stun weapon. He saw her and paused. His voice cracked as he shouted, "She's not a lone retreat. She's something else now." But it was too late. Zirala stepped forward and touched the wall. A shockwave blasted through the tunnel. The metal groaned, the lights shattered. And the soldiers screamed as their tech backfired. Jace shielded his eyes, heart racing. He had seen power before, but this wasn't just power, it was evolution. Zirala fell to her knees afterward, coughing, sweating, shaking. Jace rushed to her side. "You're pushing yourself too far," he said. She looked up, her face pale. "I'm not strong enough to stop them all." "Not yet," he helped her stand. "We don't need to stop them all. Just get out. Survive for the baby." That word still hit her like lightning every time. Baby. She placed her hand over her belly, felt the faint movement again. It gave her strength. They ran deeper into the mining system. Jace knew the tunnels from old base schematics. He led them through narrow vents and collapsed shafts every time they thought they had lost the Zyrene. A red light would appear, a cold voice would echo, "Target located. Prepare for extraction." They were running out of places to hide, out of time, out of hope. Then they found an old reactor room. Jace remembered reading that it had collapsed years ago. Radiation made it useless for humans. But Zirala's body was changing. Her new blood didn't fear the heat or radiation. "I can hide us here," she whispered. "The child won't be harmed. I promise." Jace trusted her. They sealed the door behind them and sat in the dark. Zirala leaned against the wall, breathing slower. Her skin glowed faint blue, casting light across the room. Jace couldn't stop looking at her even now. Even like this, she looked like something holy. She turned to him and said softly, "I used to think I was made for one purpose: to manipulate and win, to break hearts and collect power." He moved closer, listening. "But you made me feel human," she said, voice shaking. "I've never been allowed to feel weak before. Or safe." Jace reached for her hand. "You don't have to be perfect, Zirala," he said. "You're enough. You're everything." She closed her eyes. One tear rolled down her cheek. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. Outside, footsteps approached, dozens of them, fast and heavy. The Zyrene troops had found them. Jace stood up, checked his weapon only 2 shots left. He looked down at her. If I go out there, they'll chase me. He said, you can run. You and the baby, I'll draw them away. She stood, too, her voice hardening. No, you leave me one Sile, forgive it. You leave me now, I'll never forgive you again. Jace froze, and then smiled. I guess you are stubborn. She smiled back. I learned it from you. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the reactor room. The door was being forced open. Zirala stepped forward, hands glowing again. But this time, her eyes changed. Not just blue now, there was silver inside. Them and the light from her skin pulsed with power so ancient it made the walls vibrate. The child inside her was no longer silent. It was awake, and it was protecting its mother. Zirala raised both arms and whispered words in a forgotten Zyrene tongue. A barrier of pure energy burst out from her body and filled the room like a second skin, the Zyrene. Soldiers broke through the door, but they couldn't pass the shield. One of the commanders stared in horror. She's bonded with the hybrid already. She's irreversible now. They fired anyway. The bullets melted mid-air, one by one. Their weapons jammed, overheated, and exploded in their hands. Jace watched it all with his mouth open. This is your child's doing. Zirala nodded slowly. He's not even born. And he's already protecting us. The enemy soldiers fell back, confused and frightened. They had expected to capture a weak, emotional traitor. Instead, they found a mother protected by a force older than war itself. Zirala dropped to one knee. Exhausted, Jace rushed to catch her. Holding her close, "It's okay," he whispered. "We're still here. We're alive." Above the surface, the Zyrene ship retreated. The commander gave only one order: return home. Inform the High Council. The Diplomat is no longer under control. The hybrid must be terminated before it changes everything. The skies above Earth were no longer quiet. A fleet of Zyrene warships moved silently into orbit, hidden from human satellites, but fully armed. They weren't coming to negotiate anymore. They were coming to erase a mistake. Zirala stood at the edge of the old mining colony, wind blowing through her hair. Her hand rested gently on her belly, which now clearly showed signs of life. Her skin no longer glowed faintly, it pulsed with energy. She wasn't just carrying a child anymore. She was carrying proof. Proof that Zyrene and human life could become one inside the tunnels. Jace checked old Cum's equipment. He had boosted a signal using parts from the ruined base. One final message was ready to be sent. A message not to just one side, but to both worlds. He looked up as Zirala walked in. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. She nodded. "If we hide, they'll hunt us forever. If we stand, we have a chance to change everything." He took her hand and said, "Then let's make them listen." The message went live within minutes, broadcast across human military channels and Zyrene frequencies. Zirala stepped in front of the camera, her voice steady. "I am Zirala once. A diplomat, now something more," she said. "I carry a child that belongs to both our worlds. This child is alive. This child is real. And this child deserves to exist." She paused. "No more lies. No more missions. You can try to destroy us, but you cannot destroy the truth." Jace stepped beside her. "And if you come to hurt her," he added, "you'll face me first." The message spread fast. Some humans called it a fake. Others believed instantly. Zyrene leaders were furious. But their own people, the lower ranks, the workers, even some scientists, watched the footage in silence. And then, something unexpected happened. One Zyrene battleship turned away from the fleet. Then another, a third ship, powered down weapons entirely. Zerala's words had broken through. Not to everyone. But enough. Down on Earth, she clutched her stomach. Suddenly, the child kicked, but this time the energy inside her flared uncontrollably. She dropped to her knees, gasping. Jace was beside her in seconds. "What's happening?" he asked, panicked. Her voice shook. "He's not waiting anymore. He's ready to come now." They barely made it back into the underground shelter. The abandoned medbay still had power. Jace activated the old systems as best he could. Zerala lay on the table, her body trembling, glowing so bright the walls flickered with light. And then everything went still. A soft cry filled the room. Not loud, not angry. Just one tiny sound. The first breath of someone who should not have existed. Jace wrapped the child in a cloth, hands shaking. Zerala looked at the baby with wide, tear-filled eyes. The infant had small fingers, soft skin, and eyes that glowed with a strange blue-silver light. A perfect mix of her and him. Alien and human. She reached out and held her child for the first time and smiled, not as a diplomat. Not as a warrior, but as a mother. Then came the sound again. Boots above, ships landing, scanners humming. Zyrene forces had reached them. Jace stood in front of the door, ready to defend his family, but this time, no weapons were raised. The Zyrene commander entered with empty hands. He looked at the baby. In silence, then lowered his head. "This is not what we expected," he said, "but maybe. This is what we need." Zerala held her child closer and replied, "War won't survive what this child brings. Because this child is the future." No more words were spoken. The commander walked out, and minutes later, the warships above. Earth slowly pulled away. The baby yawned and opened glowing eyes. Zerala leaned close as he made a soft sound, half Zyrene, half human, a language no one taught him, but one that both parents understood. Outside, the sun rose, and for the first time, the light felt warm again. Zerala looked at Jace and whispered. He was never part of the mission. Jace smiled and kissed her forehead. "No," he said, "he's something better." And high above, across both stars and empires, the name of the child began to spread. The first of his kind, a symbol of hope, a reminder that real love can change even the deepest scars of war, and that sometimes the heart wins, even when no one expects it to.